Namaste yogis, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. So today's practice is going back to the basics, fundamentals of yoga. And I actually have my notes here today because I want to make sure that I include all that I have prepared for you. And the first thing that I want to talk about is how to sit up, how to sit on this cross-legged position. And I will give you a couple of options, and then once you're comfortable, then we can move on. So as you can see, I have a pillow and a cushion, I guess you call this, and you want some sort of support. If you are not used to sitting on the floor, it is very important that you start getting your body ready for that, because it is a hard thing to do for the knees and for the hips. And some of us might never be able to actually sit cross-legged, plain down on the floor, and that's okay. Because yoga is not about the pose, it is not about how it looks like, it's all about how I can bring my body to a place where I can relax, and then I can meditate, breathe, whatever it is that you're going to practice to work with your mind and with your energy. We'll talk about that in a bit. So you can have a bolster, you can have a pillow, a cushion, something that it can support your hips a little higher than the knees. That's very important. You can have a couple of blankets, a towel. You get the idea. And so, what I'm going to do now is, on my cushion, I'm going to put just a blanket on top, so that I sit at the edge of the blanket. And once I do that, it will tilt my pelvis forward a little bit. So if you look at this sideways, that means that instead of tucking the tailbone, you want to send your tailbone back and your pubic bone slightly down. That will promote the natural curvature of the spine. Now I need to talk about your knees. If you find that your knees are in pain, or they're torquing, or something doesn't feel right, you can have extra support, so maybe extra blankets, maybe blocks if you have them available, mini cushions or pillows, so whatever it is, so that it can support your knees. And if ultimately this doesn't feel right, extend your legs and put some blankets, so that still make sure that whatever you do, you have that neutral pelvic tilt. Don't let the ribcage pop forward, try to keep it in. So what we want is to keep the integrity of the spine, the curvature of the spine, which, as you know, the lower back, the lumbar spine, has a little bit of what we call lordosis. There is an arch that moves towards your tummy. And then the upper back has something we call kyphosis. It's called kyphosis, and it's like a hump. And we do whatever it takes to get rid of the hump. And that's when we start getting ourselves in trouble. So this class today, I thought we will touch in alignment and why it's so important. There are many different approaches. There are many approaches to yoga. And some approaches don't think that alignment is important, and I respect that. I do not follow that, because in my experience, alignment is crucial for your safety. So for me, any of my classes, no matter what the style I teach, alignment will always be included. And that's just something that I learned somewhere along the way, and now I just cannot not do it. So today's class, I'm going to talk a little more, as if that was even possible, but you'll see it is. So once you have your comfortable seated position, remember, pat yourself, bring your hips higher. Some of you will sit cross-legged. Some of you, depending what your pelvis does, some of you might bring one foot on top of the other. And so if you decide to put one foot on top of the other, just make sure that the ankle is not doing this curve on the outside of your ankle. So you want to prevent that. We don't want to hyperextend your ankle. Your ankle needs to move, but it cannot be hyper flexible, because remember that a lot of flexibility equals instability. So we need to take care of our knees and ankles, because they're meant to keep us, stable. Same with the hips. We get too much into I want flexible hips and look like that. But if you work so much on your flexibility and not so much on your strength, then we get in trouble. So don't focus too much on the looks of the pose. Really play around, cross your legs one way, cross your legs the other way, and find that place where it feels right. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to mention is, well, we're going to go to the basics, to the fundamentals of yoga. So the first thing I want to start is, what is yoga? What is yoga? So yoga is a discipline. It is a system in which we use asanas. So the asanas are the poses. And we use those poses to anchor the mind. But here's the twist. Asana means to sit. And we use that Sanskrit name to describe any pose, because usually we kind of sit on each pose, whether it's a warrior, you name it, a cobra, whatever. But asana really means to sit. And we do all that series of asanas or postures to prepare the body to get to this point where we can sit comfortably. If you are new to yoga, chances are that by now your lower back is not happy, your legs are not happy, maybe your knees. So it is always wise to keep the movement going. There is no rule that says that you have to stay there just because maybe everybody else is staying there, or because the teacher hasn't cued you to get out of it. The first teacher for any yogi is the body. So that's another thing that we really need to learn to listen what's going on. If something doesn't feel right, we simply don't do it. So asanas are a way to anchor the mind, but also are a way to work with the lines of energy. So whenever we get into a side bend, into a twist, we close parts of the body while we work on opening others. And those parts that are open are the ones that we're going to send all the pranic energy into. If there is any energetic blockage along that channel that is known as nadi, with the breath, you can think of maybe a tube-like channel. And if something gets clogged, think of the breath, something that it will just take it, remove it. When you exhale, that's the moment when all of those blockages leave your body, not just the toxins. And, you're not only cleansing your lungs, but you're really working at an energetic level. So yoga is a series of, it's a system that allows the practitioner to connect with the body so that they can reach the mind. And once they have the mind through the breath, because that's the way you control your mind, by the control of the breath. I always say, if you cannot control the mind, let it go and turn to your breath. So it's all connected. And when all the aspects of ourselves are working as a unit, then we can find that sense of wellness that, we can attain our, our wellness. I'm running out of words. But here's the thing. Yoga, the word yoga means union. So it's unifying all aspects of the being. So I hope, I'm not boring you with all these explanations, but I really wanted to get to those, because there is so much, yoga lingo, and we say things or we hear things, and maybe we kind of get the context because we see what the teacher is doing or the rest of the class when we're in the studio are doing, but really what all those things mean. So I thought of going to another very common word in yoga. And I know when they teach kids, they call it the magic word, and the word is namaste. And we put our hands together, and then we bow to each other, and then we close, and we say namaste. So namaste, and if we translate it, is strictly to English, it will be I bow to you. But it's a greeting. There has been so many beautiful interpretations of the word, like we have one here that Becky gave us, and this is the light in me thinks the light in you is freaking awesome. So there are so many ways to render respect and to honor the other person, and you can say it in many beautiful ways. The word means I bow to you, and then it's a sign of respect. Then pranayama. Pranayama, you will hear it all the time if you have been watching those mini workshops that I'm putting up. So maybe you have read the information there, a little concept. Prana. The word of prana means life force. And then ayama means control, or to elongate and to shorten. So life force, it's referring to the breath. So prana ayama is the control of the prana, the control of the energy of the life force through the control of the breath. So you can use the words that suits you better, but ultimately pranayama means control, breathing techniques, the control of the breath. And prana means life force, and we get that life force through the breath, but life force is everywhere. Its energy is everywhere, so we have access to it all the time. Mudra. So we use hand positions. Usually a mudra is a symbol, and it can be done with the eyes, it can be done with the hands. I use the hand mudras because that's what my teacher taught me, and I love the mudras. And hand positions have the quality to send the prana, that life force, to different areas of the body. If you wish the breath, it just directs the breath into different areas. So this force of prana goes to different centers of energy, and then we use that energy to calm ourselves down, to energize, to get a little more in contact with our inner voice. So each center will have a different meaning, a different effect, and we will get into that later. I just want to get the basic concepts right now before we move on into the basic asanas. So then when I throw out a weird word there, then you can maybe remember what it means, or you can go back and look at this wording. Then we have the other word that you're going to hear often, which is drishti. And drishti is nothing else but your focal point. So whenever we're doing a balancing pose, we refer to find your drishti, and usually we guide the student to find that still point in front where they can focus, and that usually helps with the balance. But also you can do an inner drishti where you close your eyes and you guide your eyes or your attention to different areas of the body. So there you are. Drishti is the gaze. Then we have the nadis. I have already talked about the nadis, the lines of energy. And as we move along, you're going to hear more about the nadis and learn more about the nadis, as well as the chakras, those centers of energy that I was mentioning before that are all along the spine, and then each of them have a different effect in the body. We work with those. They're wheels of energy. They're like vortexes that are around along the spine, and we'll get to that in another time. Another word or mantra or sound that you will hear is Om. We close class with Om. We could open with Om too if we felt like we wanted, if we wanted to connect with that sound. And Om is a universal sound. It's the sound of the earth, they say. It represents the divine and our connection with divine, our connection with the universe. So that there is more to it, but we'll not talk about that today, but eventually we will get to that. But ultimately it's connection with the divine, connection with each other. And now we have another word that you will hear and pronounce, and it's hatha. Not hot, but hatha. Hatha yoga. Hatha yoga means forceful. Hatha yoga is also interpreted as the energy of the sun and the moon when they come together, and we find that balance. Is that balance of the feminine energy, the female, male energy, and we need both. And through Hatha yoga and through this practice, we can balance those energies. Hatha yoga also refers to the physical practice, to the asanas, to the poses. So there you have it. Many styles are included in Hatha yoga. So when you go to a Hatha yoga class, depending what the teacher has in mind, you might find a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's just a combination of many different styles, but also lots of breathing techniques, lots of pranayama included in this practice. And then we have another term, sukha. It means easy. So the pose that I'm not in, but this pose, cross-legged position, Sukhasana, easy pose, Sukhasana. So seated, Sukha means easy, and then we have another word that is sthira, and sthira means steady, easy and steady. And my teacher used to say those words all the time. So I might go back to those, and you will hear them here and there. All right, so that's just enough for yoga words. And then we're going to move on into the poses. So you already have your seated position, and if you're tired by now, and you can wiggle your legs, extend them, move your feet, you can rotate one way and rotate the other. And when you are ready, you can go back onto your seated position. Remember to use your props to help yourself to get even more comfortable. Now, once you get into this position, close your eyes and tuck your chin slightly and breathe. So the first aspect of yoga that we just addressed was the asana. So this pose in which you have chosen your sukhasana, whether with your props or straight on the ground. Another thing you want to think of is the energetic side of it. So in order for prana to travel freely through your body, you want to have a neutral back, a neutral spine. So a little bit of a lower back arch and a little bit of a hump on your upper back. We don't want the hump on the back because we always fear that we're going to collapse forward, and we don't want that either. So what we want is to allow the spine to be neutral, and then draw your wings to your upper back. Those wings at the upper back, bring them together, the scapula, and that will stretch your pectoral muscles. It will lift your heart center, but still will allow the natural curvature to exist without you collapsing. Your legs, your glutes are active. You're pressing yourself gently down onto the floor. So the thing about this pose is, although you are in stillness, there is still a lot of energy going on and building a lot of energy as your muscles are working. Observe your breath. You don't need to change it. Just bring the awareness to your breath. You can rest your hands on your knees, palms down if you need to ground, palms up if you need energy. If it works for your shoulders, for your arms, we're going to work with the Shariras mudras. And this first mudra is placing the hands right at the top of the hips. At the, your pelvis crest, you're going to find that and just have the wedges of your hands right there. And every time you breathe in, feel your hands expanding sideways. Fill up to the chest, all the way up into the crown of the head. And when you exhale, let the body descend, let the body release, let your shoulders lower, empty your side ribs, and finally empty your belly so your hands return to center. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, starting from the lower body, expand. Exhale, release. From top to bottom. Inhale. Exhale. Again, inhale into the hands, into your armpits, all the way up to the collarbone, shoulders. Exhale from the collarbone, shoulders, empty your armpits, and finally draw your navel gently in. We'll take one more breath like this. Inhale. And exhale. Release your hands. Wiggle your fingers, observe your breath. This is known as the three-part breath or Dirga Pranayama. It's also known as the yogic breath. Now we're going to take our hands and still make some wedges and bring your thumbs inside your armpits. Just gently press into the armpits and allow your fingertips to point towards each other. And make sure that your elbows are in line with your shoulders. Draw your blades together, pull them down. Inhale into where your hands used to be. So you may actually feel the energy on the sides of your body. Breathe into that energy. Fill up all the way up into the armpits. Expand your chest. Exhale, let your chest release. And finally, empty your belly. Inhale, expand into where your hands used to be. All the way up to the chest. And exhale, release from top to bottom. Maybe close your eyes. If this is too much for your shoulders, cross your hands in front of your chest and start breathing into the waist, into the tummy, and then fill up your chest. Feel your arms expanding forward, and exhale, let your chest lower, and finally belly. So whichever works for you, no need to suffer. Sukha and Sthira. Easy and steady. Inhale into your tummy, into your armpits, and exhale, release. We'll take one more breath like this. Inhale, and exhale. Release your hands when you're ready. Shoulders back and down. Observe your breath. If you need to change your seated position, please do that. Sitting for long periods of time on the floor can be really hard for your hips. Bringing your hips higher usually helps, higher than the knees. You can sit on a chair for this part as well, no problem. Now, some of you will find that this breath doesn't come naturally, and that's okay. You just continue to follow the pattern, even if it doesn't feel that your breath is going there first. And as you continue to practice, it will become natural. Your body will catch up with what you're asking it to do. Next, you're going to bring your hands, reach up towards the sky, lifting the ribcage away from the crest of the pelvis, of the hips, and then bend your elbows and rest your hands on the back, the upper back, so something like this. So about here, elbows up. If this is too much, rest your hands, your elbows down. If you have any problems with your shoulders and this just feels too intense for you, and your elbows pointing up, then relax your elbows down and keep placing your hands here, or you can cross if it feels even better. All right, so whichever version, we're gonna start sending the breath to the waist where your hands were first. Into the armpits, expanding the chest, and into your hands now. As you exhale, release your hands, let them fall. Empty your chest, and finally empty your belly. Again, inhale into your belly, where your hands were first, where your hands were second, and where your hands are now. Exhale where your hands are now, from where your hands were second to where your hands were first. We'll take 3 more rounds in this pattern. And when you are done with your 3 rounds, you're gonna reach up your arms as you inhale, bring your rib cage away from the hips, and as you exhale, release your hands forward and down, shoulders back and down a few times. Observe. Really notice. Notice the breath. Dirga Pranayama promotes full breathing. It helps your lungs to work to its fullest capacity, and anybody can practice Dirga Pranayama. There is no contraindications for it. All right, so what's next? Oh, perfect. So now the next pose, Virasana or hero pose, or sitting on our heels. It's another pose that can be really hard for the body, but is very common. Sometimes you hear it like it's Vajrasana pose, or Thunderbolt, or Japanese seated position, and it's sitting on your heels. So once you can go onto your heels and see how that feels in your body. As you can see, you can use your props. You can sit on your cushion if you have a big cushion like this. You can have blankets to pat yourself. We usually use the blankets. But in this way, you can see how my feet are on the floor, and I am patting the arch here on my ankle, so that softens the stretch for my knees. The other thing you can do is having support, maybe a block or two in between your heels and your seats, and you can bring the support as high up as needed. The higher you go, the less pressure you're putting on your knees. So I know some of you already know this, and so this is for those of you who are new to yoga, and then when we go to certain poses and you know how to use your props and why we have how many blankets, how many blocks, what is that all for? So this is why, because you can still get the alignment that you need to be safe and still get into the meditative side of yoga. And that's what each pose is gonna bring in. It's gonna work with different lines of energy. And then you want to draw your shoulders over your hips, draw your rib cage in, and then relax here and breathe. And remember, you can continue to pat yourself. There is a little bit of a tuck on your chin, just a little bit, so the energy can really go through your spine. These are the foundational poses. From these poses, we move into different other parts of the practice. So we'll take one more breath here. And when you are ready, walk your hands on your legs. Come forward. You can take your props out of the way. And we'll go on to tabletop. So you might have your blankets or a cushion under your knees, depending what you have available. There is no rule as to what to use. Just maybe you don't have anything. Just make sure it's comfortable. And from tabletop, once again, you want to make sure that your hips are over the knees and then your shoulders are over the wrist. And this is to prevent hyperextension of the wrist. Like if your hands are behind the shoulder, then I'm putting a lot of pressure on my wrist here. So you want to prevent that by bringing your hands either right under the shoulders or maybe even in front just a little bit, and that's okay. For your spine, if you have a big arch on your lower back, chances are that your back is gonna try to do that. So whenever we say tabletop, we're talking about neutral back. So there is a little bit of an arch on your lower back. You draw your navel in to protect it, and your gaze is down. We don't let the head collapse. Push the mat away from you. And here we have another active pose. Although you are in a stillness, you still are creating a lot of energy. Your feet are pressing down, your hands are pressing down. You may move your shoulder blades away from each other, your gaze is down, and breathe. See if you can connect with Dirga Pranayama, the breath that we just did. Keep activating your legs, press them down onto the floor. Notice how that makes a difference in your position and the way your glutes are working. If you're putting tension on your neck, you're allowing your shoulders to move up towards the ears, so push them away from the ears. Put equal weight on left and right. Take one more breath here, full deep breath. And with control, walk your hands back. You can sit on your heels once again, whether you put your props or not. Rotate your wrist and shake the tension off. Awesome. Another pose that is a place where we move into different poses is Dandasana. We haven't done much of that, but we will. So you want to go to the edge of your prop. So whether it's your pillow or your blanket, and you want to be on the edge so that you move the flesh out of the way and you find that bony part of your seat bones right onto the floor. Then once you have neutral back, your back is going to try to do this. So we're going to do whatever it takes to put as many props as you need to under your seat so that you prevent that. Flex your feet and roll your shoulders back and under, and keep your shoulders over the hips. Options for this, especially if you find that your hip flexors are talking to you very loudly, you can have a blanket, make a little noodle, and place it under the knees to put less demand on the hamstrings, so that connection between your back body and front body will be right away noticed. You will notice that you release your hip flexors and you might have more space to tilt your pelvis. And we breathe here. So once again, it's not about how the pose looks like, it's about what am I feeling here. So this is Dandasana. You bring your hands by your side. So some of you might rest the hands on the floor. If you have shorter hands, you might place blankets or blocks so that you can press down gently. Draw your shoulder blades together, shoulders under, and so actually down. And breathe deeply here. We're gonna keep this pose and breathe. Tuck your chin slightly. Notice if your feet are relaxing, you want to try to keep the flexion of your feet. If you need to bend your knees a little more, you do that. You can put more props under the knees. Think about the crown of the head pushing up, like if you had a cord coming out from the crown of the head and it's pulling you up. You're putting the mat on the whole back body, but also your hip flexors are getting a nice workout here as you hold. We'll take one more breath. Dandasana means staff pose. So, and release on your next exhalation. Move your feet, your legs, and you can come out. Now when you are ready, you're gonna come up onto your tabletop position. You can take your props out of the way. And from tabletop, find neutral back. So we already did tabletop. Remember, stack your joints, press the top of the feet on the floor, gaze is in between the hands, and breathe. And you might notice a little bit easier to breathe when you press your hands down and you draw your blades away. Take one more breath. The next time you inhale, curl your toes under. And as you exhale, pick up your knees and push your chest towards the thighs. Keep your knees bent and move your hands maybe slightly away from each other if that feels that is giving you more stability. Some of you, depending on how long your legs are or how long your arms are, some of you will have to walk the feet farther away to create that V shape. Some of you will have to walk the feet just slightly forward. So really paying attention what feels right. If your hands get tired, go back down onto your knees, rest your elbows on the floor, rotate your wrist, take a break before we go back up. We're gonna take 2 more breaths otherwise here in downward dog as you bend your knees and send your tailbone up. Remember that neutral curvature of the spine. Well, here we're putting the mat on the upper back, so it's okay if you extend it. You still want to work with your lower back arch. Although it might not going to show up, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that gentle arch on your lumbar spine. Maybe walk, and when you're ready on your next inhalation, bring your knees down. And exhale, uncurl the toes. Maybe sit back on your heels. So just like we did on Japanese seated or Thunderbolt or Virasana, where you had your props under, you can do the same thing for the next pose. Then rest your forehead down, stacking your hands, and going on to child's pose. And breathe here, notice your heartbeat, notice your breath. And we're gonna continue to work with this downward facing dog for another round so you get a better feeling of it. Usually the first downward dog doesn't feel really good, but then as you continue to do them, they start feeling better and better. Watch for your hands. You want to make sure that if you have any problems with your hands, stay down on your knees for tabletop. And continue to press the mat away from you. Continue to press your feet on the floor once we get there. So bring your hands under the shoulders as you inhale. And as you exhale, push yourself up. So tabletop position, those of you who are not going on to downward dog, we stay here. You would draw your navel slightly in to protect your back, so we're not letting the back hinge. Push the mat away with your hands, with your feet, gaze is down, and then we breathe. And when you're ready, those of you who are going up onto downward dog, tuck the toes, pick up the knees, and push back onto downward dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana, or downward facing dog. And once again, once we get up there, we just feel whether we want to get our feet closer to the hands or not. Make sure you have 1 or 2 fist distance between your feet, between your toes. They can go a little wider, but not so wide that they're mat width apart. Just hip distance apart. Same with your hands. You can bring them wider if you need to. Relax your neck and breathe. The other cue here that you need to think about is the eyes of the elbows. Try to make them face forward, to the pits of the elbows. And that will open up your upper back, will bring space between your shoulder blades. See if you can find Dirga Pranayama, the 3-part breath. Don't worry about extending your hamstrings completely, especially if it changes the position of your spine. You're better off having a little bit of a bend on your knees so they could allow your pelvis to be neutral. 1 more breath. And as you inhale with control, bring your knees down onto the floor for tabletop, uncurl the toes. And exhale, sit back on your heels. You can use props, remember. Stack your fist, forehead down, and breathe. Take 1 more breath here on your child's pose. And the next time you inhale, bring your hands under the shoulders, and exhale, push yourself up. So if you notice, I didn't give you any cue for your knees. There are many ways to do this child's pose. So you can put props under your seat, under your knees, but you could also have your knees together or apart. So unless I say what is that you're doing, because you usually have a different effect in the back, but no, there's no like one better than the other. Just go with the one that feels better. Knees together, knees apart, and that's okay. Okay, so when you're ready, walk onto tabletop. Curl the toes under. Pick up the knees and push back onto downward dog. And just pay attention how this downward dog feels this time. Adjust your feet, adjust your hands, push your hands down and forward so that your chest moves towards the thighs. Relax your head. And with control on your next inhalation, start walking your feet forward until you bring yourself towards the center of the mat. Bend your knees a lot, just a lot. Relax the toes, so maybe lift them. Make sure the outer edges of your feet are parallel to each other. And you have a bit space between your big toes, maybe a fist or more. Bring your hands on your thighs and slowly start walking your hands up the legs. Come back to an upright position. Relax your shoulders back and down and breathe. So Tadasana, you look down at your feet and remember you have about a fist and a half, maybe even 2 fists, that's okay, distance between the big toes. Then you want your knees to point straight ahead as well. As sometimes when we get into this position, the knees kind of collapse in. To prevent that, engage your quads and lift them. And it's like you're externally rotating your thighs. And then your kneecaps will point straight forward as your toes. Lift the toes. Put the weight on the heels and on the balls of your feet so that your arches lift. Notice that. Notice the position of your pelvis. So some of us have the pelvis that does this, and we put a lot of pressure on the back, and we don't want that. Some of us do this, and same thing. It shortens the hamstrings, and it just creates pressure. So you want to find a place where it's neutral. So you want pubic bone and hip bones at the same level, perpendicular to the floor. Or if you were against the wall, they will be both touching the three, like a triangle, they will be touching the wall, all right? Shoulders back and down, hands by your sides, palms facing up. So once you get into this position, start scanning your body. Where are you putting the weight on your feet? Left or right, front or back, and try to bring yourself back to center. Notice if you can lift the quads and allow your kneecaps to point forward. Gauge your pelvis. Rib cage. Draw your rib cage in so your upper back will have that hump. But remember, that's okay. Then to extend the front of your body, draw your blades together. And that will help you to externally rotate your shoulders. You want your shoulders open. Your palms face forward. And then relax your hands if you like, and your palms might face towards your body, but you don't let your shoulder go with them. See if that feels right. Not everybody will be facing on the same direction depending what's going on the rest of your bones. And close your eyes if you're comfortable with this and breathe. If you feel like you're losing your balance, remember that we haven't properly stacked the joints. Think about putting more weight on your heels. Still press the balls of the feet on the floor. Notice how that engages your glutes and your abdomen. So this pose is still, but it's not passive. There's a lot going on. Breathe deeply. Still push the weight to the heels. Press your balls of the feet down. Toes are active. You can relax them, but don't let them grip on the floor. Notice how that changes. Are you putting more weight on left or right? Can you balance the weight? Press the crown of the head towards the ceiling. You can imagine like if you had a knot at the center of your navel, and the upper end of the knot is pulling you upwards. And imagine it's going along the spine and it's pulling you up. The lower end of the knot, it's pulling you down through your legs and your feet. So your legs and feet are grounded. Crown of the head is lifted. Awesome. We'll take 2 more breaths here in Tadasana or mountain pose. Relax your posture, relax your hands, tuck your chin, open your eyes, relax your feet, and walk it out and shake the tension off. Notice how you feel, notice your breath, and how much energy Tadasana brought to your body. Okay, we're going back onto Sukhasana, so sitting back onto our cross-legged position. So some of you are comfortable sitting straight down on the floor. There's nothing wrong with that. Make sure you remove the extra flesh from underneath. Try that. And when you try that, and if you notice that your pelvis is talking, do not hesitate in placing a prop until we start building the muscles that will keep you into that position without them. And that's, it may be never, and that's okay too. Remember, we do all the asanas to prepare the body to sit. Close your eyes and breathe. Relax your jaw, your face. Remember your hands down if you need to calm yourself down, if you need to ground. Palms face up if you need more energy. And we're going to work with one more mudra, very simple mudra, Gyan. So thumbs and index touch. We do this almost in every class. Palms facing up. Extend other fingers. You can extend your arms if you want. Draw your shoulders in, shoulder blades together. So find the one that works for you. You want to feel energized. You want to make sure that your legs and your glutes are engaged, that the crown of the head is pulling you up like that cord. Remember that knot that you had at the center of your tummy or in your navel, and still use it here. The upper knot is pulling you up, the lower knot is pushing you down or pulling you down. Gyan Mudra helps us to focus on the breath. It promotes the Dirga Pranayama breathing, the one that we have been working on today, 3-part breath, because this position, this mudra, sends the energy right to the base of the spine. It's a grounding mudra. It helps us to connect with the consciousness of wisdom, cosmic wisdom, inner wisdom, universal wisdom. If at any point you need to change your seated position, please do that. We'll take one more breath here, full deep breath. If you need to stay longer, pause the video and stay as long as you need. Otherwise, wiggle your fingers, tuck your chin onto your chest, and blink your eyes open. You're going to help yourself onto your back, so you can extend your legs and shake the tension off if you like. And help yourself onto your Shavasana. So this is the last pose that is very common in in every class. You will either start or end on Shavasana. Shavasana means corpse pose, and we want to be as still as possible. So I was taught just to let go in Shavasana in whatever shape the body ends up. But sometimes that doesn't work really well for the joints and the muscles. Sometimes it brings pressure. And so one of the cues that I like to give is to tug the tailbone. If you find that Shavasana puts pressure on your hips or on your lumbar spine, tuck your tailbone, release your lumbar on the floor, and then extend your legs. And then still you're going to find that your pelvis have a tilt, but there is no pressure anymore. For your upper body, blades together, shoulders under, and then release your upper back. And then maybe bring your hands behind the neck and glide them up so that you can elongate the neck but still have a little bit of space. Close your eyes and breathe. Your toes are gonna flare. Let them do that. Just scan your body from bottom to top and observe. Relaxing the toes and foot soles. Relax the top of your feet. Relax your ankles, your lower legs. Relax your knees. Relax your thighs, your glutes. Allow your hips to be heavy. Let your shoulders ground. Feel the weight of your arms and hands. Fingers curl naturally into your palms. No tension, no effort, just relaxation. Close your eyes if they're not already closed. And you might allow your eyes to move. So maybe move them towards the forehead, that space between the eyebrows, the center of the forehead. If they don't feel like they're burning or you don't feel like you're stretching them too much, maybe you can try to roll your eyes back towards the crown of the head. Keep your eyelids softly closed. And if that is too much, just let your eyes relax softly, neutral. Or you might try to draw the inner gaze to the tip of the nose. So that is your inner drishti, your inner focal point. Breathe. You can stay here for as long as you need. Otherwise, take 2 more breaths. And when you're ready, send the awareness down to the feet. Wiggle your toes and fingers. Move your feet side to side. You can move your hands. Stretch your arms overhead. Squeeze every muscle and tense, tight, tight, tight. Maybe make a prune face. And exhale, release. We'll do it again. Inhale, stretch and tense and squeeze every muscle, tight, tight, tight. Exhale, release, and last one. Inhale, stretch and tense. Flex or point your feet and squeeze. And exhale, release. Bend your knees, bring your foot soles on the floor, and move onto your favorite side. Take a few moments once you get there. And just scan your body from bottom to top. Use your top hand to help yourself up on your next exhalation and push yourself up. We're gonna find a comfortable seated position. So remember, you can sit on your heels with all of your props. You can sit cross-legged position, even put one foot over the other, but making sure there is not a hyperextension of your ankle. Make sure this feels right on your hips. Hands together in Angelic Mudra or Namaste position, right at the center of the heart, your palms touch. Close your eyes and breathe. We're gonna seal our practice connecting to the vibration of Om. Remember that Om just is that it signifies the connection with the universe, with the divine, but also the connection with one another and with our inner self, our inner guru. Inhale to the top of your lungs. Exhale. Inhale to Om. Relax your jaw. Observe. Inhale. Side out. Again, inhale. Side out. Last one, inhale. Let all tension out. Tuck your chin onto your chest and blink your eyes open. Rub your hands together. Building good vibes, all those pranic vibes that you build. Shower yourself with them and then use that energy and shake off whatever extra you carry around and you don't need anymore. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.